YouTube friends. Today we're going to do Lady of the Lake block. Unfortunately, this has funny measurements, so I'm not really sure how to achieve this other than to print out the templates. And when you measure triangle B, it's going to measure just a fraction, like a thread width smaller than 4 1/8. And this measurement is screwy, so it's less than 1 3/4. So I have cut all of these triangles to 1 3/4 with using my easy angle ruler, and I've cut these at 4 1/8. This one I want ideally to be trimmed down. So what I'm going to do after I make all my half square triangles, I'm going to increase my seam allowance where when I sew them together, hopefully it will alleviate the problem of losing the points like we did a few weeks back. And I'll put that picture. It's the same process on this as it was on the other. It's this very same block, except instead of all of this being solid, we're continuing on with the half square triangles. And this block is turquoise and white. So you will be cutting 2, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 16 pairs of half square triangles in turquoise and white. You will cut one of the larger half square triangle in white and one in turquoise. And again, your strip sets for the large ones are going to be 4 1/8 and a little bit smaller than 1 3/4. I'm really not sure how to tackle this because I don't like losing points. But we're going to try this method, and if it works, great. If it doesn't, I recommend cutting this out using the actual template. So I am going to sew all but, I believe, two pairs. I'm going to sew all of them, get them pressed, trim them down to 1 3/4, and then we're going to show you the different way of installing all of this, and it's just like the other block. And incidentally, I washed my ruler, but it didn't make any difference. So my ruler has wore out. The grippiness of the edge, you can see it, it's rounded off. It's wore out. This side not so much, but this side, yes. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and trim these. Okay, the layout goes as follows. So everything undulates. I have these turned wrong. They're all turned wrong. Darn it. Okay, so for the unsewn ones, we're going to leave them unsewn because when we put them in the corners, and I don't have something laid out right. Shoot. It's gonna be a day. That's better. So basically your whites are gonna adjoin your turquoise, and your turquoise are gonna adjoin your whites. And then your last pieces you're not gonna sew, because we're gonna sew this in halves. And so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna adjust my seam allowance by 2 thread widths, and I'm gonna sew 3 of these half square triangles together for now, and then I'll come back to the camera. Okay, this really worked well. So now you're going to take a measurement, and the raw edge of this and the raw edge of that are very close. However, from here to here is going to be big, so you're going to keep your seam allowance. So I need you to take a white and sew one side to the white, and then your dark and sew one side to your dark, and then we'll go on to the next step. I did not say earlier how to press these. It doesn't matter. Press them however you want. Now when you press this part, you're going to press towards the large triangle. Okay, now this section of 3 needs to be joined with one more half square triangle and one more of a half, and same way with this. So you're going to sew these pieces together, and it wouldn't hurt to go ahead and sew this piece to here and this piece to here. Okay, I am going to continue on with my fudge seam allowance, and I'm now going to join this strip to this triangle and this strip to this triangle. I have a couple dog ears I'm going to trim off. If I've done this right, this should measure 6.5 inches. So let's see. And it does. So that was successful. Phew. Before you sew these 2 sections, before you sew them, you need to go ahead and put your seam allowance back where it belongs. I know it sounds weird, but we know that this strip measures 6.5, and the only way we're going to achieve success is if we move our seam allowance back. Okay, I have my 2 halves. And you can spin this seam. I'm not going to. So all of my seams will press towards the half square triangle. You can press these however you want. And I have a couple more dog ears to trim. And the good news is that's a straight line, so this one's not. So let's see here. So if I lay my 6.5 inch easy angle ruler on this, it should measure 6.5 inches, and I have a tad to trim right in the middle. I would much rather trim it off the middle triangle rather than the outside. That's what we're trying to avoid. And let me go ahead and measure this one. I have not pressed these, so do better than me. Okay, it's showing chubby down here, so I'm going to trim that. Just a sliver. So I probably will still lose a little bit of points, but that's fine. I'm okay with that. And now I'll join my 2 halves together. And you will probably have to pin because none of these seams are going to nest. And I'm going to match. I'm not going to match this raw edge. I'm going to match this raw edge and this raw edge. And if the other one lines up, great. And now I'm ready to sew. All right, I'm going to press this seam open just because of the bulk. And I do need to give this a good press. After you press, you're going to want to measure. And yes, we did lose a little bit of our points on the thick spots, but it's much better than what it was before. And I am not perfect, but I bet when I press this, it'll press out better. I'm missing I'm over a hair here and just missing a little bit here and here, and this is much better than the other result I thought I'd get. This was a fun block. I wish it was sized correctly, but make sure you trim up your block after you press it to 6.5 inches. I'm unclear as to how I'm going to continue this quilt along. I need to know how many of you are still quilting along with me or have the plan to do so, because life is so hectic. I'm not going to have time to video each and every one of these blocks for the next 30 some weeks. What I can do is I can start sewing and then let you know using the templates what things should measure, and then y'all figure it out if you're game for that. I tried to get all the hard blocks in right now. There might be some that I do a tutorial on because there's probably some that are difficult that are left. But leave me a comment below if you are still quilting along and want to finish this. I kind of figure some people have dropped out because some of these blocks are very hard. Let me know. Thanks for watching.